All right, so we're recording. I'm TJ Sullivan, Executive Director of the Superior Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to Small Business Owner Mastermind for November. It's our last one of the year. We will reconvene in January. For these meetings, we frequently have someone from the community, from the chamber, who has experience to share, because it's always valuable to hear what other people have gone through in their businesses, to see, just to learn lessons for yourself, or to know that you're not alone in some of the challenges you might be facing. So when I started this job almost exactly 2 years ago, uh, Angie Rhoades of SmileLogic was the board president and is the person who can be blamed for hiring me into this position. And I I saw SmileLogic was her company, and I didn't know what the hell that was. I was like, maybe that's like a teeth whitening thing or something. I didn't know that you could get your teeth cleaned somewhere other than a dentist's office. Nobody had ever told me that. 50 some years old, and I had no idea that you had any choice on that at all. And to find out that she's been running this business successfully for a decade is awesome. So I invited her to sort of round out our year, and just to share some lessons she's learned from 10 years. I hope everybody will ask questions as we go, that we can have this be very discussion. Angie's not doing a presentation, right, Angie? You don't need the
Nope.
screen share. So mostly this is just conversational lessons from the road, and please jump in with questions or raise your hand, whatever you want to do, and I'll turn it over to Angie. So Angie, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So I know all of you except for Greg. Greg, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I own a lawn and landscape company in Boulder called the Lawn Barbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you had your business?
A couple decades now. I started mowing lawns in high school for a summer job and kept doing it into college to pay tuition at CU, and didn't really have any other career opportunities jump out. So I just kind of like doubled down on business classes and kept it going. And now our company has a couple hundred accounts and a handful of employees. And we've grown quite a bit and learned a lot of lessons as an entrepreneur over the years, and have a lot more to learn. So
Awesome.
So we need to get Greg as a feature speaker on this topic to share his experiences. But I forgot to mention that Angie's business is over on Zhang Street in Broomfield. So right there on the border. So.
All right. So I guess the first thing is, when I got into business, I actually purchased my practice from someone who is retiring. And so the way that we did it and the way that the business transitioned was not smooth, and it was not optimal for my success. And it was no fault of mine or the previous owner. We just didn't know what the hell we were doing. Like, it was just kind of, here, you buy it, it closed, I'm out, you're in. And we didn't have a transition. And now that, I'm in it for 10 years and I've already, I'm thinking about my exit strategy for eventually I'm going to have to do the same thing where I sell my practice to someone else. So I think one of the first major lessons I learned was, when I had that exit strategy, to transition more smoothly, and kind of introduce the person in that might be purchasing the business or the practice, and introduce them and set them up for success, and not just kind of like, here you go, good luck, And so, I think the goal as a business owner is to one day have it successful enough to where you can sell it and retire and move on. And so that was my first big, what would I do differently next time?
Angie, did you have anyone helping you with that process? Did you have an advisor? How did you decide that you were able to buy a business? How did you find this business? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I've always been fascinated about how people privately buy businesses.
So I had always wanted to work independently. When I decided not to pursue dental school, how can I be an entrepreneur? And Colorado is the first state that has allowed dental hygienists to open their own practices. So I always knew that this practice existed because it started inside of the old Storage Tech, which is now Oracle. And it was kind of just one of those things that you heard through the grapevine, like this hygienist has this one little room. And I was at a concert with another hygienist friend at Red Rocks, and she said, that lady is getting ready to retire and she wants to sell her practice. So the next day at work, I was fed up with the dentist and the consultant and the marketing and the, so I went in the back room and made the phone call and said, hey, I heard you're selling and I'm interested. And so we just got the ball rolling that way. And then once I started the SBA process and that, we had looked at the numbers and I did the due diligence, and that was another thing, what was on the books and what was reality sometimes aren't exactly the same things. And that's a tough lesson to learn as well. I had my father-in-law's estate attorney helping me out, and she had an attorney, and between the two of them, they started doing the little bickering back and forth. And so our hourly bills kept going up and up on both sides. And she and I were in agreement on a lot of things, but the attorneys were not. And so it was one of those things that was frustrating, that I'm like, maybe obviously I picked the wrong attorney because he was an estate attorney and not a small business, someone who would represent that, but he was a family friend. So the whole process took about 5 months between getting the SBA and, the contracts and non-compete clauses and stuff in order. So, it was stressful. There was a lot of tears. And then, like I said, the day that we closed on the loan, I came in, saw patients that afternoon who had no idea that she even sold the practice. There's no transition, and I'm literally seeing people and she's taking her pictures off the wall and carrying them out of the office. And so we ended up sitting down and sending out letters a month later introducing me. And like I said, people were not happy. They were, they felt kind of betrayed and abandoned. And so that's where, the transition thing, where I think in the future, when I do sell my practice, that it's going to be at least a year transition to get the next person introduced and up to speed. And so they know what's going on. And it's not just, here's the fire and you're getting thrown into it. So, yes.
So I know one of the points of like buying a business is you're acquiring the client base and not having to start from scratch. Was there a loss of client retention because of that experience?
I'd say probably at the beginning, I lost, when in dentistry, when you buy a practice, they say expect to lose 15 to 20% off the bat. And I'd say I lost that. A lot of people left, but then, a year or two later, they'd come back. So, I think at that point they realized, well, I have to try someone new anyway. So, they could give me a shot and then leave if they didn't like me, or, they'd go somewhere else and get opinions they didn't like, and then they'd come back and try me. So, at first it was, I was desperately trying to hold on to what she already had. And then I realized it's, she had a history with them. Everyone would come in and say, well, you're not Debbie. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Angie. We're different people. We run things differently. And that's when I realized, like, I have to build my own clientele and I have to make it my own practice, and not to be in someone's shadow or trying to fill their shoes. And that was kind of the, where the transition would have been nice.
You obviously knew how to clean teeth, so you knew how to use all that equipment. But what about things like your point of sale system and all that kind of stuff? Did you just like get plopped down in front of a computer and have to figure out with no training how to do all that?
Fortunately, at the time, the front office lady that worked with Debbie stayed with me, and she was here with me for several years. But again, day one, someone presents a credit card. I didn't have my point of sale service set up because we didn't even think about it. Like, how am I going to run this credit card? Because if I swipe it now, it's going into her account and not into my account. And so I got taken by Wells Fargo. I had to call them up and say, I need credit card processing. And they sent me the unit, and they're like, well, it's this many months of this many payments. And I said, okay. And, I didn't have any income yet. So I was like, I'll just pay it off when I start getting the income. Well, they're like, you can't pay it off early. You're in a contract and you have to pay for it for the next 3 years. And instead of paying $600 for this machine, you're going to pay $3,000 and plus per swipe. So, you know, things like that that I didn't think of. And obviously, you know, I had done front office before because I was an assistant and I was an office manager in my previous lifetime. So I had some knowledge of all that stuff. But, you know, thankfully I had Lisa here for a while and that helped out. But I think with me is that I was so paranoid about everything that at the end of the day, I tried to run my QuickBooks and I tried to balance the checkbook and I tried to look at the insurance and I tried to do this and that. And then the bookkeeper that I had that came with the practice as well, she's still my bookkeeper. And she kind of talked me off the ledge one day. She's like, what are you doing? You know, why are you killing yourself over this? Do you not trust me? And I said, it's not that I don't trust you. I just feel like I need to know what's going on. And she's like, you can know what's going on without having to be killing yourself over it. And so she'd run a P&L for me every week and she'd show me like, this is what's going on. And like, this is how you read it. And this is how QuickBooks works. You could be as involved or step back and you know, 10 years later, she comes in every 2 weeks and, you know, she'll tell me what's up. And, you know, so finding a team that could support me and make my life easier. And then now I have tools that help me set up appointments and people can text in and schedule online. And pretty much most of my insurance billing is online. So pretty much fully automatic where I can do everything myself. But stepping back and like learning, like, it's okay to have a good bookkeeper. It's okay to have an accountant that takes care of, you know, taxes at the end of the year. You don't have to wear every hat. So that was a huge learning experience. And I think, let's see, I had made some notes. When I first started, you know, because I did realize I had to build my own clientele, I was trying every kind of marketing that there was out there. So I had a patient who sold ads and like value ads. And then, so I started doing that and it was really expensive. And the only people I heard from were people were like, hey, I saw your coupon and the value ad. I'm like, great, but you're already a patient. So that's not doing me any good. So I was just throwing money just everywhere. Like, would this work, you know, and then it dawned on me quite quickly that a lot of stuff that's out there, unless you're giving away free things, you know, the people who might be looking at value ads are the people who are looking for a deal all the time. And they might be not a loyal person, but someone who's going to be like, well, that person's cleaning teeth for $39 this month. And in 6 months, that person's cleaning them. And so they're bouncing around and they're kind of the shoppers. So I learned quickly that networking and word of mouth were where I get my bread and butter, my clientele mostly from.
Did any marketing work?
No. None of the stuff that I paid a lot of money for. When I started, Debbie was already a member of the chamber. And so she's like, you know, you're just kind of grandfathered into my spot. I'm in the Wednesday leads group. You just need to go. And so at first I wasn't making it a big priority because I was like, how do I take an hour out of my day, you know, to go to this meeting? And so I'd go or I'd send Lisa. And then once I started getting to know people and people started saying like, this is what you really need to do. You need to come to the after hours. You need to talk to people. Like, you know, the people in the leads group were happy to try me out. And, you know, even though I haven't been in the leads group for almost 3 years, they're still my patients. So, you know, and then they've referred people. And so it's been great. So I'd say chamber network marketing, and then now a little bit more with social media because it's free and easy, you know, or really inexpensive to set out a Facebook ad. That's more where I'm getting my.
I'm probably throwing you completely off your notes list there, but since you brought up social media and sort of the new kind of marketing, what have you learned about that? What's working for you there?
So, you know, I've tried Instagram. I've put things out there. I'm not great at posting a lot on that. Facebook has been actually super easy because you could create an ad, or you just set your, $10 and I want it to run for a week, and then it kind of blasts it out to the demographic you choose. And I feel like that's a easy and inexpensive, and where you could really hone in on the audience that you're looking for. When you first start, everyone's like, you got to know your audience. Who's your ideal client? And for me, that's really hard, because I'm like, I see older people, I see kids, I see Medicaid people, uninsured people. There's not really someone that I'm like, I don't want that person in my business unless they don't pay their bill. That's the person that I don't want. And typically people know when they come in, they pay their bill. So it's hard for me to like say I want to work on this demographic specifically, because everyone has teeth. Everyone needs prevention, and taking care of your health is important. So.
I have a million questions, but I'm going to let you get back to your notes, or else you'll never get through your notes.
I didn't have some like work-life balance. That goes back to having that team, or utilizing tools that make things easier for yourself. When I first came in, it was on my days off, I would be coming in to try to, what do I need to do? And a lot of that was more from like, I came into an office where I didn't know what was in the cupboards. I mean, seriously, that's what I bought. I bought a puzzle. So I was coming in and, okay, this is expired. I have to clean this out. I have to order this. And so I was there a lot. And then there was nights where I wasn't coming home till like 7 at night, because I was trying to do it all myself. And it was exhausting, and learning that, I still had a life at home. My daughter was young at the time, and, I was exhausted. So making yourself a priority, and not just working in your business all the time, even though, knowing the difference between working on and working in your business, and having boundaries. Boundaries are super important.
Would you do it again, buy a practice instead of start one from scratch, based on like the cost of everything to get to where you're at?
Having the clientele in place, because there was enough for me to quit my full-time job and start here full-time. Absolutely, I would. I'd just do it differently. And when you're purchasing blue sky, I'm like, what do you mean I'm purchasing blue sky? They're like, well, it's not really value. It's just like, what is the value you see in that? And wrapping my head around that, and knowing that could all go away. If people didn't like me, then, I just lost the value of that. But again, having the team, having a good CPA that knew how, okay, well, we could depreciate some of that, because, that's just how it works. I would have never known that. But I would definitely do it again. But like I said, I would do it differently, where maybe even I would have worked for a month or two, just to kind of get the ropes, or the lay of the land. But I came in, and, the equipment was old, and I didn't like the way the office was decorated. So, I mean, within a month, I was peeling wallpaper off the wall, and we were painting through the night to get it ready to go by Monday morning. And so I did too much too soon. And I think that's also, something that I learned.
Any big financial scares? Any times? I mean, your business is, I would imagine, sort of a steady business in nature financially, in terms of there's just sort of steady income if people are coming in to get their teeth cleaned. But have you had any financial roadblocks, anything that threw you for a loop, time you had to make a major investment in the business? I don't even know if you've been in the same location. Did you ever have to sign a new crazy lease? I mean, anything like that?
All of the above. When I first started, Debbie was taking insurance, and then when I put my provider ID on it, they said, we're not going to pay you because you're not a dentist. And I said, well, you were paying the previous hygienist. They're like, well, she was grandfathered in. So what she was making and what I was making immediately kind of like dropped off. And that was month 2 into it, where I was getting the letters back from the insurance companies. So I've had to really go to bat for myself and call insurance companies and talk to them, and, how does this work, and how can I get, how can you guys recognize me as a provider? I was in Texas one time with my husband. We were on a little vacation, and one of my friends was working in the office, and she called and she said, your x-ray machine just fell off the wall. And the old x-ray machines are super heavy, and it fell off the wall and ripped out the drywall. And the patient that was there helped her like lower it to the ground. So, I'm out of state. I'm like, just don't take x-rays this week, I guess. And then when I got back, I had to buy like a $5,000 x-ray unit that had to be rewired. And, it was on the list of things that I was going to get eventually, but then it became, urgent. And then at the 5-year mark, I actually moved locations. And so I was able to use a broker who found me a good space and a good deal. And so I actually ended up saving money after my move. But again, it was one of those things we didn't hire out. My husband and I were here every night, ripping out drywall, putting in floors, painting, doing all the stuff ourselves. And at the end, it was great because we got a build out allowance from the builder. So it pretty much didn't put me in the hole that much. And the last thing was just COVID shutdowns. I was shut down for 8 weeks. But I was able to get the PPP and an EIDL grant or loan. So, I just laid low and enjoyed my 2 months off, and, tried to do a lot of continuing education at that time. And my initial goal was I was going to come in and paint the office and clean out all the closets and stuff. And at that time I was like, you know what? I'm just going to relax and see how this goes. And so I was watching a lot of, Governor Polis talking about what the next public health order was and how it affected dentistry. And so I took it in stride. I enjoyed having the time with my daughter, who's a teenager now, and just kind of preparing for, what I needed to open safely for my patients and myself.
I'm interested to know a little bit about your relationship with dentist's office, because your business is it competes with these dentist's office who have pretty established businesses. And if a client of theirs moves over to you, I imagine there's some interaction there. Have you ever talk about your competitors, I guess, a little bit, and how you fit into an industry where you're not the normal thing?
Got a lot of support. When I first started the office that I was leaving, it was a corporate dental office, and one of the dentists there, he was also an employee, so he was not an owner. So I had talked to him about what I was doing, and he was like, you need to go for it. And what do you need from me? And I said, I need someone to read my x-rays, and I need someone to be kind of a supervising dentist. We don't need that in Colorado, but for certain things, you're supposed to have a dentist that, hey, I might be giving you anesthetic, and they give you the go ahead. So right away he was on board, and he started doing that immediately. And then he rented out a space in my office for 3 years. So whenever I had people come in, I'd say, I think you need this. I'm not making a dime off of it, but I do have a dentist that's here one day a month that he can take a look. And so I grew his real small little business for 3 years. And, it was just a good opportunity for him to get out of the corporate as well. And then he ended up purchasing down in Cherry Creek. So, he couldn't run both sides. So he sold his practice to a dentist in the area, or I guess sold his patient charts. That dentist agreed to work with me and continue on. And then he ended up contacting every one of my patients via letter, saying that he could have his hygienist see my patients in their office, and then they wouldn't have to go to 2 separate places. So legally, I don't know if he could. I assume that was unethical. I don't know if it was illegal. So then I had to contact all my patients and say, sorry for the confusion. I'm still here. You could still come to me. So I probably lost a small handful of people to him. And then people did come back and they're like, that wasn't cool. Like, I don't appreciate that he did that to you, which, you know, loyalty is great. And then I work with 2 or 3 right now that I send people to all the time. And then, you know, like I send people to Dr. Dixon for orthodontics, and, you know, it's kind of just seeing what people, you know, what their need is. If they want someone who's highly cosmetic, or if they want someone who's holistic and stuff like that. You know, finding a good dentist is hard. And a lot of times people don't need a dentist that often. They just need the hygienist with the dentist to look at x-rays and make sure everything's staying healthy.
Well, I want to say finding a good hygienist is hard. And I'm going to make a point to come over to you, Angie, because the gal who I was seeing isn't there anymore.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing about about dentistry is dentists don't tend to give a lot of raises. So to get a raise, you move offices, and it's just kind of, I don't know why, but it's the way of the world. And it was like that when I was an assistant, and it was like that, you know, and then sometimes the dentist will bring in a consultant, or they'll have a new owner, and, you know, the hygienists tend to rotate. Or if they have more than one hygienist on staff, you don't get the same person over and over. And people tend to not like that.
Yeah. You know, and I have to say, like, for me, just to share, you know, it was just assumed, right, that you just saw the hygienist that was at the dentist's office. But
Yeah.
my husband is a certified x-ray inspector for dental and veterinary. And I know that there are hygienists out there that have their own business. So I'm pretty stoked about coming over to see you. But I think you're saying everything just completely, you know, valid, that it's like, and I do think that that relationship that you build with your client base is huge. People don't want to change and see a new hygienist. I think even maybe sometimes more than they are okay about changing their dentist.
Yeah, and that's the feedback I've always heard, is like, I've had the same hygienist for 20 years and she retired, and, you know, yeah, I've only seen the dentist a handful of times, or for 1 minute every 6 months. So yeah, I think it's a really cool concept. You know, you're not getting upsold on a lot. You're not having to wait. You know, that was one of the most frustrating things, is working in an office. I'd be done with my patient and the dentist would be on the phone, I don't know, talking about hunting or something. And I'd be like, you got to come do this exam. Now we're all running behind because you won't get off the phone. And it was just, and it wasn't just one dentist. It was a whole lot of dentists that I worked for. And it was just kind of one of those things that was, or they'd be stuck in a procedure and they couldn't come out to see you or see the patient. And patients would get mad because they waited for 20 minutes. And then the dentist would come in and do literally like a 2-minute exam. And they're like, really, I waited 20 minutes for that. So, you know, my office is quiet, it's small, it's just me. There's not the sound of drills. It doesn't smell like burning teeth. You know, it's actually a very pleasant environment.
Why haven't there been 50 of these kind of offices opened up around the area? Seriously, you're the first one I've ever heard of. Talk about the industry. Why haven't more people just duplicated? Why haven't more hygienists duplicated what you've done?
There's more out there than you think. A lot of them kind of lay low because they work part-time for a dentist and they don't want to compete with the dentist that they're working for. So they're kind of just trying to do it, you know, under the radar, which is opposite of what you want to do when you're running a business, right? And so I contact a lot of hygienists, and I do it pretty often. And they'll be like, well, how did you even find me? How did you know I was out there? And some of them are trying, but their marketing is not great. Like, they have no SEO on their websites. They don't market very well. And then I see a lot of hygienists that when they open their practice, they want all brand new equipment. They want 10 rooms up and running because they're going to hire, you know, a whole bunch of people, and then they end up going bankrupt in the first year. So I think it's with any business, you've got to work within your means and build. You don't, you know, it's not it's not Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. That's not how it works. So I think just marketing and knowing that it's an option is kind of the biggest challenge for hygienists right now.
So Angie, do you have assistants?
I don't
No assistants?
know. And my front office, she left like 3 years ago, and I was like, okay, I tried, I had my niece come in and work a little bit. And by the time you train someone, I'm like, I could have just done that by myself. And I
So
could have
do you
done it the
just-
way that I wanted. And like I said, with the new technology of online scheduling and online forms and bill pay and texting, my patients are really accustomed to, if you call me, I'm not going to answer the phone because I'm with someone. So everyone emails, everyone texts. And as new patients, I let them know, like, hey, I'll call you back as soon as I can, but if you want to email it or text it. And it's great. Even my patients in their 80s love the text system. It's great. So, and since I see only 8 patients a day, I'm not overwhelmed with, excessive amounts of
Okay.
insurance billing.
So you had said that you chose not to go to dental school?
35.
How come you decided not to go to dental school?
So I had been a hygienist for probably 6 years at that point, and I was doing my prerequisites. And when I sat back down with the advisors, they were looking at the prerequisites I had taken for my bachelor's degree, and they said, well, these are expired and you need to retake them. And at that point, I'm like, I'm not sure what changed about the periodic table of elements or the Krebs cycle that I need to retake my whole Bachelor of Science degree. So it was one of those things like, do I want to be $400,000 in debt and take, something that should have been 4 more years, which was going to have to take me 6 more years. So that was kind of the turning point for me, like the time and money I'd have to invest to redo it. And I've been in dentistry since I was 16. And so it was kind of just that natural progression, like assistant, front office, dental hygienist. I was going to be a dentist. And then now with the turn of the way that dentistry is going, it's when I see private practices, I try to really support them because, not to say that dentists and corporate practices are not as good, but I worked for a corporate machine, and I don't think that the patients are the priority in that setting. So, and I think a lot of it is going that way. I mean, a lot of the offices that I've worked in the past, the older dentists, instead of trying to transition out and sell, they just sell to,
Private equity.
Heartland Dentistry, who has 40 offices in Colorado. So it's just a weird direction that it's going.
What do you see as the future of your industry?
As far as dental hygiene, really trying to prioritize that oral health affects way more than just having pretty teeth. We're seeing the connection between diabetes and heart disease and, the rise of oral cancer in younger people because of human papillomavirus, and just being more prevention and education and trying to do whole body health. I think is, you're not just coming in to get your teeth polished. So I think the future is trying to move that way and be more kind of holistic and whole body approach.
I think it's interesting that the health apps and the watches and all the different things, they don't really have anything with dental, do they? Or am I missing it?
Not a lot. I have Humana for my health insurance, and they have a program, and you get points for doing different things. So they do have dental exams as a huge chunk for points. And once you hit so many points, your premium goes down every month. So they are trying to promote like dental health through some of the health insurances, which is great. But
Who else has a question for Angie?
yes.
I do, and I'm sorry if you hear my 8-year-old counting math out loud. You said that you hear a lot from your clients on texts, and I was wondering if you have a system to handle that, or if it's all just that you manually see the text and then you somehow incorporate that. Some of my clients want to text me, and maybe it's that I only have one phone, like for my whole life, and I get
I really don't want clients to text me because I'm afraid that maybe I'll read the text and it's 9:30 at night and then I'll forget to go back to it the next morning. Do you have any kind of system in place for that, or?
So right now I use my practice management system that has it, but I just switched from ZipWhip. So if you haven't used ZipWhip, I would totally look into that. Because I think they can assign you a number that you text to, or it'll text to your personal phone number or business phone number, but it's an app. So, you'll see the indications, but it doesn't come in on your regular text, which it was awesome. And you could do two-way text, or like if you're going to be out of the office, you can send a blast. It's, it's kind of nice. It was a really nice system. And I think it was easy to use, and like $30 a month or something. It was really inexpensive.
What was
Okay.
that provider? ZipWhip?
ZipWhip.
Do you maintain two different phones though? I think what Lane was saying when she was, I mean, are you carrying around two different phones, or are you just all in one phone?
Yeah, I have a VoIP phone here. So if I'm sitting at my desk or if someone else has to answer, we have an internet phone where my calls and stuff go through. But otherwise, if I get a text or a phone call, I get it on here too. My VoIP system is called WildX, and it's through it's a company in Broomfield, but it's Liberty Communications. So same thing, they could put the app on your phone or on your desktop, and you could get texts as well as, so you could have a landline per se, because you have a phone on your desk if you want, or you could just use your cell phone. So I have two systems. I have my practice management and the VoIP.
Can you talk a little bit about being a woman business owner? Any special experiences around that, or anything any sexism you've had to deal with, anything like that around just advice for women business owners?
I wouldn't say that I've had any roadblocks or anything. Dentistry used to be mostly men, like the older dentists who kind of oppose what I'm going through. They'll be like, these gals going out there and starting their own practices. And I did have the head of Delta Dental of Colorado. I had written him a letter saying like, hey, you guys got to come into the 2000s. Like, hygienists can do this. This is our job. There's 10 of us. We really want to be in network, and how do we do it? And when he responded to the email, he meant to forward it to his assistant to have her do it. But when he responded, he said, this seems to be a disgruntled wildcat group of hygienists that pretty much want to have rights, So I just kind of forwarded that along to all the hygienists that were on the letter with me. And so our little group, when we get together and we have meetings and talk about our practices and stuff, we just, we're a bunch of wildcats. But other than that, I don't, applying for grants and stuff like that, I've never received anything for being a woman-owned business or anything like that. So I would say what I did find is, networking with other women, you do create a really good bubble of people that help you and, push you along. And sometimes there's people who are like, have you tried doing this? And it's like, oh, I haven't, like, what a great idea to be able to bounce that off of someone who's in like the mortgage industry or real estate. Like, I would have never thought of that, but if it's working for you and yours, maybe it works for me and mine. So.
Anyone else have a question?
I just want to say I love your stories about, finding other people to do certain things that they're an expert in, your CPA, your front desk person, like your bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I'm going into my business 3 years in January, and I'm finally letting go of some things that I know I want to let go of and I need to let go of. It's kind of hard to get there, but I really love your story and how you kind of learned the hard way and then transitioned into that. Because I think that there is the e-myth, right? Where it's like you think that you can do everything, or, you think you have to do everything, and you don't really. To be more successful, you shouldn't necessarily do the things that other people can do better.
Yeah, and like people are like, you do your front office and everything yourself. I'm like, yeah, it's really self-sufficient, but I'm not doing my payroll, I'm not doing my taxes. I really leaned heavily on people for a while, and then when I streamlined my systems, then I was able to downsize and pare down, but I still have a core group of I have an attorney, I have people who can look over a lease for me. I have, and they're not people I talk to every day or utilize all the time, but they're there when I need them, and they're okay with that. So,
Angie, how'd you find time to volunteer? I mean, I think as a person, especially in an appointment-oriented business, I I was always shocked that you had so much time to help me when I was starting in my position with the chamber, and you were the president of the board. Somewhere along the line, you made a decision that you were going to put leadership out into the community while you were trying to run a business, a lot of it as a solo employee in your business. Can you just talk about how you found the time and why you invested time in leadership in the community, especially with the chamber?
So my practice is open Tuesday through Friday. So that always allowed Monday to be the time that I work on the business or work in, with networking and stuff like that. And like I said, I had started with the Wednesday leads group, and it's been about 8 years that I've been on the board. But some of the people that were in the leads group are like, just try it. It's a 2-year commitment. If you don't like it, 2 years, that's all it's the next level. And at first it was just like, well, you have to show up to some of the after hours, and then it's one meeting a month. And then as they became more involved, and I had no idea what a board did. I've never sat on a board before. Like, what is that all about? And kind of learning and seeing what it is, and can I do that via email? Do I have to, so I do a lot of things. I'm very technology, like, contact me by text, by email. I will get back to you, and I know how to prioritize that. But, in-person meetings are a little bit more difficult, unless you can meet me on a Monday. I'm all about meeting on the phone or texting or emailing people. So,
Well, I
but
knew to
it's
show up 5 minutes before the hour. I always came over to get checks signed at 9:55 or 10:55.
yeah.
Yeah.
What time can I come? Between this time and this time, or at lunch? Yeah. But I just feel like the chamber has helped me a lot. I did some women in business. I did some small business masterminds when I first started. And then that was really hard, like trying to find that time in my schedule. Like, do I block it out and lose that revenue and by not having a patient? And so I had to step back from some of that stuff. But if I have standing meetings or, leads groups or stuff like that, then I know ahead of time, and just planning. It comes down to planning and trying to help the next person have success, because right now, especially, you're looking at like, how are these places going to stay open during code red, and what can we do to support them and stuff like that. So,
Well, we're starting to run out of time, but I wanted to maybe end on a question about what you see for your future. You've mentioned early on in this session, you talked about an exit strategy. You're starting to think about maybe the future. Can you talk a little bit about where you see things going?
so clinical dental hygiene is really hard on your neck and back and arms and wrists and everything like that. So, ideally in the next few years, I'll be stepping back from the clinical part. And like I said, helping someone transition into my practice. And at that point, I will do more marketing and help them build the business even more before I back out of it, as well as train them and help them. My daughter graduates high school in 2.5 years. And we always had a plan that once she was out of high school, we had a lot more opportunity to move about the country. Aruba's high on the list. I don't know. But, you know, we don't know. I have no idea, but I just know that, you know, in the next 5 years, things will change a little bit for me, or they're going to change a lot for me. So, but it's not because I hate business or anything like that. It's just the time to transition.
Time, yeah.
I might need
The
to talk to a transition coach, right, Sheila?
the kids getting out of the house definitely helps. It's a good milestone.
Yeah.
Claire, did you have another question?
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask what advice you would give to a hygienist who wanted to open their own business.
I probably get 3 to 5 emails or phone calls every week or two from hygienists who are like, I'm going to sell everything I own in here in Missouri and I'm going to move to Colorado. And it's kind of like pump the brakes, because, you know, you got to look at the cost of living. You got to look at how much do you have to make per hour? How much will you be reimbursed per hour? So, you know, and my thing is take it slow. Don't overspend and, you know, overextend yourself right off the bat, because I've seen it fail more than I've seen it succeed. But I do consult with a lot of hygienists that are coming into, you know, or, you know, people will just be like, I just want to bounce some ideas off of you. Like, do you think this is feasible or will work? And, but everyone I know who has started from scratch has had to work for a dentist like 3 days a week for a couple of years and build their practice slowly. And so that was the benefit of mine, is I was able to just jump right in, but, you know, take the good and the bad with that.
So Colorado, how many states are there where hygienists can open their own practices?
Right now, hygienists can practice, I would say independently in 40 states, but it doesn't look the same in every state. So say like in Nebraska, like independently to them means they don't have to have a dentist on site, but they have to still work under a dentist, and they could work in a nursing home or a school setting. So, you know, you might be somewhat independent, but you're not, you know, 100% autonomous. Colorado and Maine and Oregon are the 3 that have pretty flexible regulations. California does, but you have to have an additional certification and you have to be in an underserved population. So that doesn't mean you have to be out in the middle of nowhere. You know, if you're in San Jose and you're in a neighborhood that has 2 dentists for 20,000 people, that's an underserved population. You could be there, even though it's, you know, a populated place. So, you know, the ADHA has a really great graph that shows like which states allow what. And, you know, I mean, there's states like Texas that still don't even let dental hygienists give anesthetics. So they're going to be 30 years down the road before they even think about letting a hygienist not have a dentist tell them what to do. So,
Well, the beauty of this now is that when you get all those calls for people who want to discuss whether they should do this or not, you can just direct them to this video and make them watch this before they bug you, right?
yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, Angie, are there any final thoughts you wanted to share as you're looking at your notes there? Anything you missed? Anything you want to make sure you leave us with?
That was it. It was just, you know, make time for yourself, work on your business and not just in your business. And don't be afraid to lean on other people to help you and reach out and ask, because there's more resources than you ever imagined, even in people that you didn't think were a great resource to begin with. So,
Are you accepting new patients?
always.
Smile-logic.com. Is that right?
Yes.
Beautiful. All right. Now we're all going to do the silent applause for Angie and thank her for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. And I'm going to stop the recording.
All right.
All right.